This is it, the night of nights. No more rehearsing or nursing upon. We know every part by heart. Overture, lights. This is it. We'll hit the heights, and oh, what heights we'll hit! On with the show. This is it.
Producers, got a suit on. Let's go. Yes,
And with that, ladies and gentlemen, I sure hope the audio was up on that. That was the one thing I was not sure of, was whether the audio. Was not able to hear it on this end. So I hope you guys got to hear our rendition of.
I hope now we're going.
What was the title of that song?
Overture.
It was the overture.
The opening to the Bugs
Bunny Roadrunner show.
No, it wasn't the Bugs Bunny Roadrunner show. It later became the Roadrunner show when it became Warner Brothers 7 Arts.
Well, Bugs Bunny and Daffy Duck did that together.
Correct, but that was back in the early 60s, Joe. Believe it or not, for some of you young folks out there, ABC Channel 7 actually ran the Bugs Bunny show in prime time. I think it was on a Thursday or Wednesday or Thursday night at like 7:30 or 8 o'clock in the evening. And that was prime time fare for the ABC television network way back when.
Our audience tells us that they actually did hear it loud and clear, so that was a good thing.
Good.
And that actually was right near the Tappan Zee Bridge. Back how many years ago?
You can't say Tappan Zee Bridge.
It's the Tappan Zee Bridge.
The Mario M. Cuomo
They
Bridge.
didn't have the Tappan Zee Bridge back in those days, remember? No.
Actually, I think the Tappan Zee was still up and running, but they were building the new bridge.
Right, yes. Well, this is our last night on Fios1 News together, and as I have written on the title, it is not our last show because we're going to make it work through Skype on a. We'll try to do it on a semi-regular basis, especially when storms are around. That would be great, and if we maybe do it once a week, that would be great too. So you and I will work out those logistics, and we'll see how it goes. Mm-hmm. I'm sure it'll be fine.
Somebody was just opened the door a crack. I don't know who it was. I don't think.
Well, I think it's outrageous coming into our studio. Is that La Green?
It's Rob.
Oh, hey, Rob.
Are you guys on Facebook?
We're on YouTube.
Oh, okay.
Are you leaving?
Just want to say goodbye. Bye,
Remember what I told you.
I know.
Okay.
I loved Rob. He always used to bring me. He always used to bring me French fries from Burger King.
Every time I think, Rob's last name is Kennedy, and for some reason, I keep thinking back of Officer Kennedy from the late 1920s, early 1930s shorts and the comedy shorts there.
Okay.
Go look it up on YouTube. You're too young to remember.
Okay.
All right. So welcome everybody again. We're not going away, so just want to make sure that is very clear. Because it seems like how many times I say we're not going away, people keep asking me if we're going away. We're not going away.
We're not going away.
All right. So you and I were having a conversation earlier today about whether we can call, would you call this frigid? I'm sorry, would you call this, what word did you use?
Well, is it
Did you
bitter,
use frigid?
Bitter cold. And believe me, folks, we know about bitter cold, or we know about cold today because about 2:30 this afternoon, the fire alarm went off.
Yeah, exactly.
And we had to evacuate. And thank goodness I brought a bit of a heavy coat today. There were some people out there who looked like they were freezing. We were out there for about, 35 minutes?
I know. I had my best flannel on. But and folks that watch my live streams from home know what that means. Okay? But, it was cold out there. Look, kind of the way I've been looking at it is, as far as when you look at... Oh, now he comes in. I'm in the middle of a sentence, Addison, so let me finish my sentence. No, come in the shot. I'm just saying.
Folks.
So... So
is there another chair in here? Or?
No, that's fine. I'll just leer over Joe.
We could take one of our chairs, but we're old, so
no, you guys
we have to stay seated. But my view was that when you're stretched to this extreme, and I don't know, there's been at least 125 or 150 records broken across the eastern part of the U.S. today. I think there were even were there some all-time records set in some places? Not here.
I
mean,
believe so, towards the south.
Do you even know what the number was? Do you? In
No,
terms
I know
of
it
the total?
was
It was a lot.
When it was like over 100.
Yeah, it was a lot. And actually, that doesn't even count the record low daytime highs, which to me, I actually think that's even a little more impressive. When you get the high temperatures, those were shot down by about 5 to 7 degrees from the old.
I understand what you're saying for this time of the year. This was an incredibly cold outbreak, but to me, the word bitter implies that you're out there
Yeah.
and there's a wind that's blowing like at 20 or 30 miles an hour, and literally it feels like your face is about to freeze. Or
Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't
your
quite
fingers are
like
wooden.
that. I
No.
think it was just a matter of it is early. It's still the first half of November.
Yeah.
This is a really cold shot for this time of year, and I think was it 2 weeks ago we were up at 70 with dew points in the upper
2 weeks
60s
ago,
and
2
severe
days ago,
weather.
we were at 60 degrees. It felt wonderful.
Yeah, but that's okay. That at least is inside
yeah.
the realm of the.
We didn't have the high dew points, though.
No. Well, that was back when we had those dew points were ridiculous when we had that severe weather outbreak a
Yep.
couple of weeks ago.
Oh, God, that's right. We had what? We had temperatures in the low 70s and dew points near 70 in the evening.
Yeah, that was nuts.
Crazy.
That was
crazy.
that was gasoline fuel for
Yes,
that one.
yes.
So Addison Green, who's one of our colleagues, and he's popped in from time to time. He works the day side, so he should be on his way home already. But you at least let the traffic go by.
Yeah.
But Addison tell everybody where you're going.
Well, after this stint here at Fios1 News, I'll be heading down towards Texas, CBS Houston.
Well, not towards Texas. You're
Towards
going
it.
to
Towards
Texas.
and
Even though you're heading toward it, you're going to it.
right, not in the heart of Texas, but I'll be diving right in the Houston area, and I'll be on the CBS station KHOU starting on December 4th.
Channel 11.
Channel 11.
And we
that's right.
occasionally have people from Texas that watch this channel. So they are already setting their DVRs for it.
Get
I
ready
would
for the live
just,
stream.
as someone who spent 2 years in South Texas in Corpus Christi, known as the Sparkling City by the Sea, very small. It's a small city. It has grown, and it's right on the Gulf Coast. I lived about a handful of miles from the beach and right near the Naval Air Station there, and it really is nice. But that whole stretch in Houston, I would just advise you this: that summer stretch, okay, just be ready because the air basically doesn't move.
Yeah.
All right. At least Corpus Christi actually. It's on the Gulf Coast, but it's not that as humid as you might think it is. If you go inland by just a handful of miles, it's like the desert. It's bone dry. It goes to 100, but it's bone dry. It's a little lower along the coast. But there was always a nice, every day there was a good solid 20-mile-an-hour wind. So even when it got up into the lower 90s, at least it moved the hot air around.
Right.
You won't have the luxury of that wind.
No.
So just remember that.
I'll be enjoying the AC, trust me, and I'll be looking forward to being away from here for the wintertime. Wouldn't mind that, but come summertime, I'm coming up towards
What
your
about,
West area.
what about the bugs? The insects?
I'm not a fan of
Well,
mosquitoes, so that's gonna be a problem.
Well, one thing I remember when I lived in New Orleans, and you brought this up, and I thought about this. For some reason, this came up today. In the summertime, it would get so hot that the flies, which would really get very, very large, they would fly so slowly. If you had them in your house, even with the AC, they would fly so slowly you could literally pick them out of the air. You didn't have to swat them or try to. You would just grab them, just like this. Even they hated the heat.
I was at Cape Canaveral for the first night launch of the space shuttle in 1983, August 30th, I believe, and it was incredible. I said the intensity of the sun and the humidity was like triple anything I ever experienced in New York, and I was walking around and I saw what looked like a grasshopper. It was about this big, going up a cable. It was like greenish with like red polka dots on it.
Going like this.
And going, literally like going
What
like
is
that. And I turned to somebody and they looked at the ground, looked at me and he said,
Lunch.
We grow them big down here. Oh.
Yeah.
Get me out. Get me out.
Yeah, I could remember I could remember moments where I felt like I was watching a plane land on a runway when those palmetto bugs would come in and you'd find them.
Oh.
And then they
Good luck, Addison.
And,
Sounds
they,
so pleasant.
and they really go crunch.
This is why I didn't mind when I was in Minnesota, because I knew that everything would be gone for a couple of months. But
Now-
then come the summertime,
Yeah, but the mosquitoes up there are enormous.
that's their state bird.
Yeah.
Now tell everybody else, Addison's going to a CBS affiliate in Houston, Texas, but he has for quite a few years now been working at least part-time for CBS. If you've ever watched what I consider, Joe and Addison, to be one of the best programs on television, CBS Sunday morning from 9 o'clock to 10:30 in the morning. Love the show. Wake up to it every Sunday morning. Don't
I
ever
watch it
miss
too. I don't watch it every week, but I do watch
Wonderful.
it.
Well, you're gonna.
I love the long pieces on all sorts of odd subjects.
And when you see Jane Pauley, when she reads off the quick news at the top of the hour and does like a 15-second weather forecast with the maps of the United States, and here's today's weather and here's the weather this week, guess who provides the information and does those forecasts?
He does.
This guy right here. And in fact,
Is
how
it
many-
Union?
The shop is.
You.
I am not.
Oh, too bad.
But he's being on that show or being associated with that show. How many Emmys now that you've gotten?
4.
4 Emmys.
Nice. Very good.
For
Fantastic.
National Daytime Emmys. It's been an honor working with that team and getting the chance to produce for that show. It's been a blessing, and hope I get the chance to still do it in the future.
All right. So how about we do some weather here?
Yes.
All right, before we do that, I just want to acknowledge a few people hitting the Super Chat board tonight. Corey Bodziak, thank you so much for hitting Super Chat. Johnny Quest, you did it again. Thank you so much for hitting Super Chats. Shelly Man Studios, Brandon Doherty, Chuck Cardillo. What were you, 5 this morning up there in the Catskills? I saw a big 0. It was at Lake Sydney.
Goose egg.
Yeah, big 0 up there. Ryan Ford.
Oh my God.
Thank you so much for hitting Super Chat tonight. Really appreciate it. Very generous. All of you, very generous. Thank you,
Ryan,
William.
for that, I'll come over to your house and do your laundry next week.
Absolutely.
Ryan's gonna. Ryan is an aspiring meteorologist, and he and I have spoken many times.
That's a coincidence
And-
because come this summer with him down in Houston, he's going to be a perspiring meteorologist.
Yes, that's
And
true.
I don't do well in the humidity, so get ready to see a meteorologist melt on TV.
Bill Uber, thanks for hitting Super Chat tonight, and of course, be careful because sometime in the next few weeks, I might be over your looking over your shoulder while you're bowling. So I hope I don't make you nervous. I know where you bowl too. So, and Ruthless Goat from the great state of Colorado, not too far from Denver, always sends me all sorts of information about what goes on out there, especially during the wild weather that they had back in the month of October. Thank you guys very much for hitting Super Chat tonight. Really, really appreciate it. So we're going to do some weather. And I think, Joe, I did pull up, I set it up earlier. And, of course, these maps are going to have to reload now. Hopefully this one will do it. Come on, load.
This is technology,
Really?
ladies and gentlemen.
I don't know why it does it does this where it unloads and then it loads again. It's just not no, hold on. Let me see. I don't want the hazards and warnings. I want the observations. There we go.
Ta-da.
Well, I set it up because I wanted to look at first the morning lows. And now it's trying to reload all over again. It figures. Hang on. Min temperature. I don't need this, and this. I just need the min temperatures. It doesn't want to work right. Actually, you can sort of see those numbers, but those aren't even the min temperatures. Those are actually the current temperatures. All right, you know what? I'll come back to this. But these were some of the records, at least by us, that went by the boards today. These were the record low highs that we took out this afternoon, and by sizable amounts. Newark by 6, Kennedy by 6, LaGuardia by 4, Islip by 5, Bridgeport looks like was dead even, and Central Park missed it by 1 degree because they got to 34. So they did not break the record. That record goes back to 1911.
11.
And by the way, just to be clear, because I saw this subject matter brought up elsewhere, and that is the the fact that we we have all these record lows. Of course, I've seen the global warming people, or now it's the global cooling people, or the climate change people, going off the deep end about it. Just as you can't say that that record, a set of record highs is evidence of global warming. Neither is a set of record lows. Okay, so it kind of works both ways. Would you? I guess we all agree on this.
If you look,
I totally agree.
I haven't had a chance to look, but State of the Climate, which is a website that is available from Washington D.C., and they give great summaries of the past month in terms of temperature, precipitation, whatever. But I mean, we could be sitting underneath what is, relatively speaking, a localized dome of very cold air. Meanwhile, there are other parts of the world, the northern hemisphere, that might be sweltering through unusually hot weather. Well, case in point, what's going on out on the West Coast?
Yes.
With the extremely warm and dry weather.
So
It would be
But
quite
it-
a shock for them if they came into our area today.
Well, while they were getting all that Santa Ana wind, though, that was not warm out there. It was cold. They were getting they were getting cold air that was draining down on the west side of the Rockies.
Okay.
And they were blowing away.
Right.
With all that, but that was a little unusual, because usually you get when you get the east wind over there, they burn up. But with temperatures, in this instance, it was actually it was cold and very dry air.
And actually, the Santa Ana
For them,
season,
cold for them anyway.
the Santa Ana season is just past now. It's most likely during the middle, I think, in the latter part of October, that they get their hot wind. And now here we are in mid-November, so you would have to expect that wind, however direction it's coming from, is going to be a bit cooler than what you would normally get, let's say, during the season when it's rather hot.
The computer tonight is hiccuping, and I guess maybe
I'm just
it's
sitting there watching you and watching the computer, trying to get.
well, because I'm the director on this show.
Yes.
In case anybody doesn't know, I switch all the maps around while you pontificate comfortably in the chair next to me.
But that's why you nudge me.
Yes.
The man nudges when he's having technical difficulties. He nudges me, and that's the signal for me to blither until he can unscrew up whatever is
blather.
screwed up, or blather. Yeah.
The core of the cold air is overhead tonight. So you and I had this conversation. Addison, you can certainly give your opinion before I tell you you're wrong. But okay, so tonight, I was looking around at some of the records that were up tonight, and some are doable, some are not doable. And some hinge on whether it stays clear long enough, with winds dropping off to dead calm. So your thinking was, last I checked, was that clouds would come in time to stop the temperature fall.
I think. Well, no, actually, I had temperatures in the Hudson Valley down as low as 11 degrees in some of the valley spots. But I'm thinking that later tonight, say especially after midnight, there's going to be a swath of high and mid-level clouds that are going to be coming in. And I even told our viewers tonight, if you're up late enough, that you might see a halo or a ring around the moon, which is just past full. So you might want to look at that. And that often means that there's going to be a change in the weather. In this particular case, the change is not going to be in terms of a drastic switch over to precipitation. This is going to be a change, the atmosphere's reaction to a push of milder air over the nation's midsection that's going to send our temperatures, hopefully, to near or maybe even above 40 tomorrow.
And by the way, while all this is going on, there's warm air. It's just not here yet. It's trying to move eastward. And you can see the temperatures back over in the plains and in the Rockies are in recovery mode, because this air mass came down from northwest Canada, which is going to be different from the one that's coming in for Saturday and Sunday, because that's coming down from north central Canada and moving into southeast Canada and New England,
And modified.
It's going to. Oh yeah, the core of that cold air is going to go up into over near Montreal, New Brunswick, up in northern New England, but that air mass is not going to have a big impact of temperatures back across the Midwest. And this warmer air is trying to push eastward. So this air mass right now is really we had two of them. The one that preceded this one goes out, so we don't have another big high coming down out of Canada, as the extreme cold pattern is breaking down, and we're going to see the pattern evolve over the next couple of weeks. And chess pieces move around in the longer range. I'm going to, as we were talking about the satellite, why don't we bring up the U.S. satellite to see
Did you want to say
these
something?
clouds racing east?
Oh,
Did you agree with who did you agree with the temperatures, Addison?
I agree that we're going to be seeing some cloud cover coming on in just a little bit, so I don't think temperatures are going to bottom out a lot, but they will do so a little bit.
Well,
I think the main drop is going to be before midnight.
Yeah.
For
well,
us.
judging from the loop right now, the high clouds are getting close. There's also some low clouds out in the ocean that I think may back into coastal New Jersey and Long Island tomorrow morning. But for out my way, for example, out in West Hampton, this could be one of those prime nights where everybody bottoms out somewhere maybe in the upper teens and low 20s, and they as long as they can radiate, and then they go down to like 10.
Well, the Pine
So-
Barrens in eastern Long Island, and also some Pine
And
Barren
New Jersey
activity
too.
in New Jersey too.
Yeah, in southern New Jersey, west of Toms River, and down south into South Jersey, they radiate like crazy. But we also have, by the way, we have a shortwave trough that is moving across Mexico and into Texas, and that's going to produce a low in the Gulf of Mexico, and eventually, as we get toward Friday, a storm off the southeast coast of the United States. I'm thinking gales for the coastal North and South Carolina here, and some heavy rains for those coastal areas, but that storm is not coming up here. That's from what I saw.
Right, and that big high that'll be building over, as you mentioned, Quebec and New Brunswick Saturday, early Saturday, that's literally going to squash that storm offshore and keep it to our south, but the pressure gradient is going to tighten up significantly.
I mean, come Sunday, I think like south and east of the city, we'll be dealing with mostly cloudy, if not overcast skies much of the day. North of the Cuomo Bridge, you're probably seeing partly cloudy skies, maybe close to the Catskills, mostly clear. Just the dry air will be in place for such a long period of time.
Well, we decided that it was still the Tappan Zee Bridge.
Oh, I agree. And I love it that there was a sign on 287 across Westchester Expressway that still says Tappan Zee Bridge on it, even despite they changes all the other signs.
Please, if and who knows, maybe the governor watches this show and he'll get very irate and immediately call up somebody to get that sign changed. And don't forget that we're paying extra to make sure that the M between Mario and Cuomo are in that are on that sign.
I love taxes.
Well, it was 29 for a high. I'm trying to populate the high temperature map, and Hartford only got to 29 today. And there, that's the only temperature that's populating anywhere in the east. I had the whole map filled. I was going to take it all up and down the east coast.
I was doing population sound effects here for you.
Let me see if I move it around. I'm doing this off camera so everybody can, I'm not driving everybody crazy. It's not working. I give up. You
That's it.
Oh, well.
You know that the minute we get off the air that this map will work.
Of course. That's how it works.
All right, you know what? I'm punishing it. It's going away, never to be seen on this show
I was
ever
so close
again.
to breaking Central Park. I can't believe it's always so hard to get Central Park to break records.
By the way, I don't know about that now, Addison, because
At least the cold temperatures.
well, even the warm temperatures now since they moved. I don't know when they've. There was a stretch there where that thermometer was just out. It was crazy, going back years ago.
Oh, yeah.
And then they, I think they relocated it, and now it's actually in a rather, it's in the grass somewhere, and there's actually
That's
a
Belvedere.
lot of trees
I
around
think
it.
it's
That's
on this-
Belvedere Tower, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's in the southwest
And,
side. I've seen it.
Their daytime highs are not nearly as warm as they used to be compared to everybody else. Of course, you can't compare it to LaGuardia because they got the, they got the exhaust from the plane.
I think it's at the end
and
of
the
the
thermometer in Newark, the thermometer in Newark literally sits on the tarmac. So, no. So, anyway. The problem with the Central Park records is they go. It's not that it's a problem. They have the biggest database because they go back 150 years.
Yeah.
So they go. You got records that are standing, like the one I think this morning went back to 1911. So yeah, some of those numbers back at that time, because whatever cold cycle we were in the late 1800s, early 1900s, was fairly substantial, and so it's impressive when we take out one of those. Anyway, it's very quiet across the country. Outside of the Amber Alert that's up in East Texas somewhere, and a few other places in Texas, we don't really have we have no watches and warnings. Everybody's had a freeze, so that's not part of the equation anymore. And we've got some patchy dense fog in parts of southern Oregon and into parts of Idaho, where the air in the west is relatively stagnant right now because of the upper air pattern that we're in.
I saw from one of my colleagues, Mike Augustinek down in Florida, sent photos in of sea smoke coming on in with the cold air rushed across the Gulf right near Pensacola. So it's just like, for that to happen this time of year, that's got to be pretty uncommon. Like January, sure, but like
it is.
Nah. They were into the 20s in Pensacola.
Yeah, that is for this time of year. That's way
geez,
too early for
Pretty
them.
sick.
Someone froze. I can hear my parents complaining from here.
Warmer air streaming across the Great Lakes, so we've got a couple of bands of snow up there and back into parts of Illinois, but not amounting to much. No other echoes, of course, up and down the East Coast, and you're starting to see that rain in Houston, no less. But you've got rain along the Texas coast, and this is that low that's going to be moving off the southeast coast of the United States in another day and a half. And out in the west, a little bit of snow activity in parts of Montana, and that's about it. So I think we can maneuver now to let's take a look at where we're going. Why is this computer so slow tonight? Oh my God. This is driving me crazy. What is this, a 386?
On a dial connection.
Well, you're not being funny. That's actually quite true. So we've got the new GFS, and a couple of things that came up today that I saw, by the way, and we talked about this yesterday when we were doing the long range. I kind of think that we came to the conclusion that we're going to go into a period of transition here as we lose the. Hang on a second, folks. Let me get my pen thing if it decides to behave itself. So of course, we're coming off this negative East Pacific oscillation, and we've got this strong ridge that's up the west coast. We've had this Canadian connection that has brought down the cold air. This is what the jet stream is looking like right now. You have this upper low in south of the Aleutians, a flat trough that goes down to about Hawaii in a bit more of a straight line that I've drawn. And now here's that southern shortwave. It's a bit of a split flow that you have here. And that southern shortwave it's going to have a tough time trying to move northward because of all of this that's going on up here. And it's not likely that that northern jet is going to get out of the way to allow it to come up. And you can see it here. It gets some energy actually from the north, kind of dives into it, and it just gets suppressed. The two streams are pretty separate. Now, here's your northern jet, and this is for Saturday. And your southern jet is down here, and they're just functioning as two very separate entities. And now, of course, your ridge in the west is starting to flatten a little bit. So that connection that came up from northern Canada going into the Great Lakes, now you're seeing your area in Canada is kind of moving more west to east. So that cuts off the extreme the extreme air masses, at least for now.
Right. Now that's a pretty good looking little shortwave trough down over the southeastern.
What, this
state.
one here?
Yeah, that'll cause.
There'll be a gale. That's going to create a gale center off the coast, but it's going to get
probably a few thunderstorms as well.
It's going to try to turn northeastward along the coast, but it ultimately just kind of gets minored out and kicked away to the northeast and offshore, because you've got this next trough on Sunday night, Monday,
right,
that is dropping down into the lower Mississippi Valley, and that winds up swinging toward the East Coast. This might be something that we should pay a little attention to, because the trough is sort of going a little bit negative here. So if there's a second low that forms in the Gulf, maybe instead of getting kicked out, it comes a bit closer, and we have perhaps to deal with some rain here maybe later Tuesday or Wednesday.
Well, that thing looked like earlier this week. The models were bringing that second short, literally right up the coast, in some cases right over us. I know the GFS at one point had a 990 low over us, like Monday night, Tuesday.
Well, we'll see what the new surface does in a minute.
I did say to you earlier today, however, that I was a little disgruntled about the early to middle part of next week, how there were significant differences, at least in my opinion, between the GFS and the European
in
the modeling of or the pattern that we would be looking at for the middle and latter part of next week.
Well, you know what? We'll do a head-to-head comparison here, and here's the other thing that's happening is, of course, in the West, where we've seen this ridge recently, that breaks down, so you actually do get some energy that moves in during the first part of next week into the West Coast. We haven't seen that for a while, and the ridge that was built all the way up through Western Canada toward Alaska is now being replaced by a trough. The question is, before the the snow weenies jump off the cliff, is, you know, don't think that this is like something permanent, because these sorts of things are going to happen even when you have a really cold pattern. There's always going to be some volatility, and the atmosphere is going to want to reload. So that system in the east gets kicked out. The one in the west then drops down into the southwest and then gets ejected eastward as we move toward next weekend. And there's more energy now in the Gulf of Alaska that's pushing into the west. And this is where the GFS in the longer term tries to at least drop a trough in the west and a ridge in the east. This is toward the end of the period.
Yeah.
Right.
It does this every other run. When there's something, I always find that when there's something big going on in the atmosphere somewhere, the model gets very volatile. So I'm going to get the European so we can show everybody the difference.
I was wondering, is there any big system? I mean, we haven't had anything tropical globally lately, but is there been any big system driving northward that would dislodge?
You mean like a recurving typhoon?
Yeah.
I don't think, I haven't heard of anything. I didn't really give it a good look.
I just figured like that's something like this time of year we typically find one of those big guys goes north and here comes the Arctic South.
Well, because
Typhoon Husada.
when the typhoons recurve east of Japan, they do they do tend to reinforce lows up in the Gulf of Alaska and the Aleutians, driving troughs down at 160, and that usually favors 160 degrees west. And that usually favors a ridge in the west and a trough in the east. This is the GFS at 168. This is the European at 168. So they match up okay. Where I think the biggest difference is in the west, because the GFS has this long trough that runs from Western Canada down into California. The European has a ridge building. And actually, we talked about this yesterday, that split flow that wants to try and develop in the west. The European continues to have this more, a hint of more blockiness to it in its longer range. And it showed this yesterday. It's showing it even more so today. And it carries on into the end of next week. I mean, this is not when you look at this, I love split flows because they can be very exciting. Here, you've got this deep upper low here in the east. I'm just going to mark everything down. Your Pacific jet, the bottom part of that jet comes into the southwest and then off the east coast. You've got this cutoff low that's sitting in Colorado. And then you've got the northern part of the split that goes up into Canada, and then you have a little bit of a Canadian connection here with some colder air from northwest Canada. So that's the European. So let's go back and get the GFS. See, Addison, we do very exciting things with this show, with all this, high-level technology that I try to use. So here's the GFS for the same time
Where do you
frame.
think we get our forecast from? We watched your Joe and Joe show the night before.
Well, clearly. You were well brought up, weren't you?
Of course. Make sure you get the app. Everyone get the app.
No, I didn't erase it, did I? Oh, silly me. All right, let's try this again. You can see how wonderfully technically savvy I am. So we'll do it the other way. So here's the GFS. I'm going to draw the way the GFS has everything. Trough over here. Flow into the northwest. And then you got this out to here. Okay, so that is the GFS. Now I'm going to switch to the European. And now it should be there. Yep, there it is. So there are your differences really with the biggest, a number of differences here. Where the GFS has this sort of flat flow in the east, the European's got this wrapped up vortex sitting just east of New Brunswick and in southeast Canada. has a much colder look to it coming for the latter part of next week. It actually has a ridge up the west coast, the split flow coming into the Pacific. Snow lovers are, they're going to want it, at least in terms of the longer term perspective, Joe, they're going to want this to be right as opposed to the GFS model.
It's the old game of splits and blocks. If you want any kind of a snow alert. Oh,
Wait, hold on.
Hold on a
Addison,
second. We're-
hold
I
on.
have to step away.
Hold on. Addison is leaving us. Thank you so much,
Sorry,
Val.
guys. Of course, guys. It's been
It's such a pleasure to work
It's been
with
an amazing
you.
pleasure, man. Come on now. You guys are family.
Oh,
real
bless
pro.
you.
Joe and Joe.
a real
Good. I'll be
pro.
down in
Miss you
Houston
guys.
shortly. Make sure you have an extra bedroom.
I will. I will
Okay.
indeed, man.
Just
Your dollar goes a long way down there, so.
Oh, it,
And come on
it sure
down.
does.
But yeah, guys, it's been a pleasure, and until next time.
All right.
All right.
Take care, pal.
Take care,
We'll
guys.
talk.
Have a good one. Of course.
That was our colleague Addison Green
Signing off.
signing off.
Signing off. Well, he's signing off. We're going to be
All right,
signing off in a few hours here. So
Yes.
let's-
All right. So that's right. All right. So let's come back to this, and before we go tonight, I'm going to try to see if I can find a couple of things that I saw scattered around social media that could be so exciting. So let's go. Let's go to.
Who are you, the Cindy Adams of social media here?
All right, so let's just go to the at least let's go to the GFS with its wonderful precip. I'll put the radar. That always works better. And of course, remember with these big model differences, a week out, one of these models is sitting in the secret square, and the contestant who picks it first, and the forecaster who picks it first. Okay, so here we go. So obviously, with what's going on in the east, this cold high pulls out. We've got this cold front coming down from Canada that has very little with it. And while that's happening, we've got this lovely low along the southeast coast that, as we said, is going to bring some some gales along the coast and some heavy rains. But it gets ejected out. Here's your cold front. Wait, I kind of slipped with my finger. Your cold front is right about here.
You see a skinny
And,
line.
That's a nice little high coming down, that 1035 high.
Yeah.
And it builds up into upstate New York and New England. This is where you get can get a fair amount of low-level cold air to drain pretty far south.
Right.
So I thought Saturday we wouldn't get out of the 30s.
I don't think many places are going to get out of the 30s. I think I went for an average high in the Hudson Valley of 39, but that implies a range of 36 to 41. It's going to be still pretty damn cold for November.
Your coastal low in North Carolina, that'll probably produce some heavy rains on Saturday along the immediate coast. And as I said, I think I'm pretty sure you're going to see some gales there. That low, the latest run of the GFS really wants to bring that precip pretty close here on Sunday. I was a little concerned about Sunday with where the high is and that straight wind, that east wind. We would have some cloud issues with this. The rain, I think, is probably getting lifted up a little bit too close to the coast. Keep an eye on it, but it should get kicked out away. And then we wait to see with this second low, Joe, which the GFS has developing early next week off the southeast coast, the second low, and that one is on this run at least, and the GFS loves to do that. It may wind up in reality being further to the west. We'll see. We'll have to see how much room there is for this to climb. But it actually wraps up a nice little low and some pretty hefty rains moving into New England, and even changes it up to snow in northern New England on Wednesday night into Thursday. And
Right.
The 976 Gale Center sitting just southeast of Cape Cod. I wouldn't put this in the bank yet, by the way.
Yeah, I wouldn't set it in set it in stone either. But we'll see.
And the European has a much weaker look, by the way, but initially it gets to a deep low down the road when it's up in Canada, but it doesn't wrap it up as quickly as the GFS does.
Right.
And in the west, with a little more energy coming in, we're seeing some rain into the northwest and northern California, and some scattered Rocky Mountain snows at low down in Texas. Ruthless Goat at 192. The GFS gives you snow, but if the European is right, well, it might come out the same way with that upper low there, so it'll be something to pay attention to. I'm kind of losing confidence beyond the 1 week time frame here in a big way.
The chess pieces are being moved around in a very complex manner, and I'm not a very good chess player.
I haven't
So-
played in years, actually.
So-
Really fast, I'm going to bring up WPC's map. Why don't you talk about this? And while you're doing that, I'm going to try and pull up a couple of things I want to show with regards to the long range
Now, this is
that I
the-
saw today.
Now, this is the 5 or the 7 day?
This is the 7-day
Okay.
WPC. So maybe this gives us a clue as to where these guys are going in the next 7 days, as far as what they think about where these lows are going to go.
Well, that map shows you obviously that along, or just immediately along and out over the Atlantic Ocean, is where we have the heavy-duty rainfall or precipitation amounts. And notice also the very sharp cutoff that is occurring. In fact, it's not too far to the west of here in the immediate tri-state area that there's no precipitation being depicted at all. So a lot of the activity that we'll be looking at between now and, let's say, Tuesday or Wednesday of next week is probably going to be right along the coastal areas due to that first coastal system, that gale center that will be occurring Friday night into Saturday, and then that second system that will be following in its place for later Monday into Tuesday. Those two systems, again, as it looks right now, will be concentrating the lion's share of their moistures fields out over the ocean. And as I said, Joe, just a little ways to the west into Pennsylvania, right over the New Jersey-Pennsylvania border, it's dry.
Yeah,
And,
large part of the country dry for the next 7 days, and we're just on the edge of that.
Yeah.
All right, so I did find one thing, and this was something that a few of the snow weenies were pointing to today when they were looking at the teleconnections, and this is one we don't look at. We haven't really pulled up too often here. This is the Arctic Oscillation. Okay. It's very important. It's much more important probably than the North Atlantic Oscillation. The Arctic Oscillation, same thing, pressure patterns across the Arctic region. When it goes negative, that means pressures across the polar regions are high, and the jet stream is displaced further to the south. And if you notice, Joe, they don't have a big image of this. This is, I'm kind of trying to make it as big as I can so everybody can see. But it actually went negative in the beginning of November, and the red is the forecast going into the first part of December. It goes strongly negative here, which means there are going to be higher pressures in the polar regions, and that would displace the jet further south, bringing cold air into the United States.
Now, is this a
Although
signal,
it doesn't necessarily tell you exactly where.
is this a signal of stratospheric warming?
Well, it has been talked about. Dr. Judah Cohen, we've had on our show before, and maybe, hopefully one day we'll be able to get him again. He has been talking in the last couple of weeks on Twitter regarding stratospheric warming that it may be underway right now, and that these teleconnection models, which of course are very much snapshots. We could look at this tomorrow or the next day, and it may look different. But all those different red swiggly lines, by the way, is those are different members of the ensemble. So all of them show it being negative. So that gives you a high degree of confidence that that's going to that it's going to occur. And the other thing I want to show is real quick is the same chart, but for the North Atlantic Oscillation. So just give me a moment to find it. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I just wondering about that. What this may be alluding to then is maybe we'll see a kind of a relaxation of the outbreaks of very cold weather that we're into now and may see in the coming days ahead. When I say a relaxation, I'm saying maybe trending back more toward normal, not necessarily above normal, but
Right.
close to normal. And then maybe by early December, if all of this starts to play into the realm of a stratwarm or a stratospheric warming event, and that's what the Arctic Oscillation seems to be suggesting now, we might see a new outbreak of very cold weather to kick off the month of December.
And coupled with that, once we get into December, you notice the NAO is running positive. It is forecast to go negative by all, virtually all the members. Not all of them. There's actually, I think there's one or two up there that I can make out with my. I have to get new glasses. There's, I think, one member that's got it positive into that first part of December, and all the others have it down one or two standard deviations away from the mean. So that suggests that we're going to get into a very blocky pattern. And I've been seeing signs of it on the European. And someone tell me, I saw today someone mentioned the fact that European weekly, the climate weekly models of the European are cold for the month of December, which may be a switch from what the models were showing back a couple of months ago. We'll see.
Well, I don't know about that, but I do know that if it turns out that we have a cold December or below normal December, that's going to be the flip-flop of what we had last December, at least in the eastern part of the country. We had abnormally mild or warm temperatures. I think overall, the average for the United States for last December was plus 2.6. It was one of the warmest Decembers in recent memory. And that helped to make last winter, in spite of the frigid air that built in here during late January, February, and early March, that helped to make this past winter above normal. And that very, very warm spell of weather that we had during December.
I would just say this with regards to the North Atlantic oscillation. It is forever predicted. It seldom shows up. It just seems like models are... The European probably not so much. The GFS definitely. And maybe it's a good sign that the GFS is not doing what the European is doing from the stamp for the snow lovers, I should say.
Right.
That in terms of showing the blocking, because usually when the GFS shows blocking, it almost never happens, and it's been extremely elusive. It's predicted often, and it somehow always seems to find a way not to happen. So I view these forecasts, and I think it's wise to view them with a certain amount of skepticism. Because of the fact that the track record of NAOs in the last 6 years, or 6 or 7 years, we really haven't seen it very much during the winter time. We see it more in the summer lately than we've seen it in the winter.
And that was the NAO played a big role in diverting Sandy into central New Jersey. Of course, that wasn't the summertime; that was October, but still. And I can remember, Joe, that there was one year. I think it was maybe, about 7 or 8 years ago, where the Europeans started suggesting a major shift toward a negative NAO in like November, and then people were saying, getting all excited about it, and then it became apparent that wasn't going to happen. Oh, it's delayed. It's still coming, but it's not going to come now in late November. It's coming in early December. Oh, wait a minute. It's still, there's a bit of a delay there, mid-December, maybe late December. And I think that was a winter where we didn't see any negative NAO at all.
Right.
We just we spent the whole winter waiting for it.
And I would also point out too, in the winters of 2013-14 and 2014-15, we did it with no NAO.
Right.
That was all EPO, and the East Pacific Oscillation, which I've said many times is far more important. And I continue to go down that road. I would love to see what the EPO has to say in the longer range. And let me bring that up. Hang on one second.
Remember how you were suffering for a while at the beginning of last winter because the country was in a shutdown mode?
Oh, right. We couldn't see it. That's right. We couldn't see
the maps
it.
were not available.
Let me just take a look. Today is the 13th. Well, that's pretty interesting. Kind of goes up and down, and these are the ensembles. The NAO is forecast to go negative starting on the 20th, and the P&A goes negative. The Pacific North America Index goes negative. You want to see that more toward the flat line at least. Mm-hmm. And the EPO is weekly positive, but there are a few stretches in there over the next couple of weeks where it goes neutral to slightly negative. So we'll see. There's a lot. We've got a lot of interesting things that are going to happen over the next couple of weeks in terms of the overall pattern. So let's give some big thank yous here. Scott Briller twice for Super Chat. Thank you, guys. You're being really overly generous. Thank you so much for this. Howard Vanderhoff looked under the cushions and found some Super Chat money. Thank you. Brandon Doherty, thank you so much. David Schwartz Scott Briller again. Jason Schaefer, thank you so much for hitting Super Chat tonight. And thank you. You're very generous. All of you, very generous. Mr. Briller, twice again. Jason Barry, again. Thank you so much for Super Chat. And from earlier, Timothy Veltman, Corey Bodziak, Johnny Quest, Shelly Man Studios, Brandon Doherty, Chuck Cardillo, Ryan Ford, William Uber, and Ruthless Goat. Thanks so much for hitting Super Chat tonight.
You want to tell these people now how we split this?
Yeah, yes, we are.
Here's how he splits it with me.
And Awesome Gaming, thank you for hitting Super Chat.
One for you and one for me. Two for you and one, two for me. Three for you and one, two, three for me.
Oh, Lord have mercy. Anthony Orr, I'm sorry. Let's see. Okay, never mind. So you guys are all talking amongst yourselves, which is a good thing. Just running back to see if there are any weather questions tonight. By the way, Jason, Central Park did not report any measurable snow. They didn't even report a trace yesterday. Just so you know, we need to see Judah Cohen again. I wonder if these last few cold shots are from the start of this stratospheric warming. I'll try to get them in the next couple of weeks. Once I get my sound system set up on my my new laptop, and make sure that bringing Skypes in, that you wind up, I don't have any audio issues. I will try to arrange something with him and bring him on board. It was fun to have. I just can't have. I don't know that I can do two people in there at once. I think I can, but I got to figure that out. And I might have. I don't have cobwebs on my snowblower, Howard Vanderhoff. Just so you know. All right, I guess that's it, Joe. We're coming up on the top of the hour, so this is our last time in the studio together, and we will be doing it Skype-wise from here on in, and maybe every once in a while, you can take a drive, down to Long Island and do it at my place, or maybe you can take a drive down to Long Island and do it from my place.
You can come up and my wife will make you one of those butter cakes, those butter pecan cakes.
Oh God, that was if someone had said, you have 10 days to live. What's your last meal? Julia Child said that if for her it was just her answer was butter, just butter. Give me butter. And I used to strongly agree with that. But now I'm thinking if it was the last 10 days on Earth, yeah, that butter pecan cake was just. It's basically butter anyway.
Yes.
It was like there's like 5 pounds of butter in it. It was awesome.
Yeah.
It was just awesome.
Well, maybe they'll let us come. You think they'll open the doors and let us come back here to? Well, maybe the studio wouldn't even exist by
with the dust.
With the dust, yeah.
The dust has been here since the first day I started.
Oh dear me.
Look, this is really. It's you're going to be in one place, I'm going to be in another. We can do the same thing.
Right. But people are like on for.
And we'll get used to it too, because we'll be, when we play off each other,
right.
We're right next to each other.
Well, I post a forecast every day. I'm going to continue to do that. So for those of you who are saying, "Oh no, we're not going to get a forecast anymore," you'll get the Hudson Valley forecast, and you know what you're going to do. I'm not exactly sure where I'm going to be going or doing or whatever.
You'll find your way.
But yeah,
you'll find your way.
I just want to say on my Facebook page, so many people saying so many nice things, and I mean, like the post you did we kicked off the show tonight with
right.
a little Bugs Bunny thing. A lot of people saying very nice things about you and the two of us, and it's just amazing. I think I know now how Alex Trebek felt the other night. Multiply that by maybe 500. It's really very nice, and I just want to thank all of you for. Tuning in and enjoying us, and for me, I'm not sure if tonight is going to be my last night in front of a television camera, but 40 plus years on radio and television, and I've been invited into so many people's homes, and that's a nice place to be for 2/3 of your life. Wow.
Yeah, honestly, when you think about it, the way this business is. There are not many of us that make it to this point.
No, I remember.
I mean,
watching,
to last this long.
I remember watching Tex Antoine on Channel 7 on his 25th anniversary. They did something at ABC Channel 7, and in his little speech, as he was doing his forecast, Tex was 50 years old on his 25th anniversary, so he had spent half of his life doing weather. And, for the two of us, we've been in this business now for 40 years. I don't understand how that happened.
I don't
Like,
either,
to
to tell
turn
you the
around
truth.
And, one moment it's 1979, and the next moment, boom, it's 2019. I failed to.
Oh, it's just insane how quickly the time,
Or if you want to put it from another standpoint, we have done the weather in one way, shape, or form, either on radio or television, for parts of 5 decades. The 70s, the 80s, the 90s, the noughts, and now, what are these, the teens or whatever?
something like that.
Something like that. It's amazing.
I'm trying to find, I must have accidentally erased the video I put up. And I'm trying to find it in OBS, in the software that I use. Just give me a moment here.
Is this the video we kicked off the show with?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
And of course, being almost 61, I don't exactly remember. I found it. So, in case you missed it, this is when Joe arrived at Fios. We went out and shot some promos. This was back, 3 years ago?
This was January of 2017, I think.
All right,
We
so
did this.
almost
It was
3.
fairly, and considering it was January, it really wasn't all that bad temperature-wise.
Right, and this was a reunion for us, as we hadn't seen each other in a number of years, and of course, when two people haven't seen each other in a number of years, this is what they do.
This is it, the night of nights. No more rehearsing or nursing upon. We know every part by heart. Overture, lights. This is it. We'll hit the heights, and oh, what heights we'll hit! On with the show. This is it.
Producers? Got a suit on. Let's go. Yes,
My sound off. Okay, that's what happened. All right. So hold on. See, this is why I need a director. Okay. So let's try it again, just in case you didn't see it. They're all no sound, no sound. Okay.
Red flag.
Yeah. All right. Hang on one second. Let me try this again. So in case you missed it, one more time. All right. I don't know if that worked. You know what? I'm getting so confused now. It's really driving me crazy. I know you guys can hear me because I can see my mic levels are bouncing, but the audio thing, I wasn't sure. Now the clip is silent. I can't get it right.
But all war heights
We'll hit. On with the show. This is it.
Boom.
Good night, everybody, and have a great night. And I will see you tomorrow at the usual YouTube live stream time, 7 o'clock Eastern. Good night, everybody.
Night, night.